Yeah.
All right, perfect. So see, today's agenda is very, very simple. We're going to break down how a typical analytics workflow is actually going to look like, and what are some key principles in terms of like data preparation and governance principles. I'm going to focus less on this. A lot of these things are obvious, but we probably need a separate session on this, just on the governance principles. And most of the time will be spent on figuring out what are the different levels of using GenAI for analytics purposes. Okay. So simple agenda. So typical analytics workflows, I'm going to summarize it like to a large extent. One is the data preparation. So how do you, let's take a typical corporate scenario, right? So your production databases, you have your read-only replicas for smaller startups where you directly tie it up with your BI tools for your analytics. You become slightly larger. So what you actually do is you create a separate data warehouse, so where you actually have summarized tables, or you have transform tables, which you actually use to do a lot of analysis. And if you're really large, you probably go to something like a data lake, and again you have like the summarized layer, you have longer ETL pipelines, etc., aggregated layers, again all of those, right? So then there are a bunch of like data governance tools and other things that have actually come in, which is useful for you to manage the entire data, how you're actually setting it up for your analytics. Simple things like when you become really large, the definition of each of these terms actually become a lot more important. So when you grow, the complexity grows and more people actually come in. This is an area where you actually put a lot more effort into. Okay. The second one is the analytics process itself. This is what like an analyst or a data scientist or a PM or a founder or a business folks actually do. They get access to the data. So this is typically done on a BI tool, and you do those analysis, and either it could be an ad hoc analysis or a form of general report that you actually end up creating, and finally you end up publishing reports. Right? Publishing reports could be in the form of dashboards or separate reports, and you also send it over emails, you send it to customers, all of these things. Okay. Now let's the main thing I'll actually focus on is using the 5 levels of GenAI, right? So again, one caveat over here, a lot of with the advent of GenAI, there is a new format that has actually evolved, is how do you analyze text-based data, right? So you have large volume of like chat information or email information or your freshest ticket information. That is something you can analyze really well. I'm not going to cover that today. I'm just going to typical data analysis workflows. I'm going to take that and say how GenAI can actually be used over that. So that's the focus of this particular session. Okay. Now let's jump into these 5 levels of using GenAI for analytics. Okay. So we'll start with level 0. So level 0 is what we actually do today. Okay. So if you are in this industry, you definitely know tools like Metabase you would have used, or my network is a little slow, guys. So this is something you might use. Google also has something called Looker, right? So then you might definitely be aware of Blue, right? So there is a superset. There are a bunch of others that you can actually use, and or you go into directly using something like Google Colab or what do you call any Jupyter notebooks. Okay, so this is mostly for like slightly more deeper and use Python to do these analysis. Right, so this is basically what we actually do, or you can directly write SQL queries in your BI tools to kind of like get this information. So this is what we do today. So and we download Excel. One important thing I missed is Excel. A lot of data analysis actually happens on Excel. So you upload the data, you transform, pivot, you create charts, and you explore using that. Right. This is what I call level 0. I'm sure most of us in this group would have used some form of this to do their data analysis. Okay. Now jumping into level 1. So in order for us to evaluate this, I have taken a sample data set. Okay, so we'll just do a, like we'll just walk through it, these different levels through a sample demo itself. Okay, I'll show you the data. Is this the one? Yeah, so this is a sample data that is a data, so open data set that is actually available. It's basically, you have different invoices, and even each of the invoices, what are the products you are actually purchasing, what is the quantity of the project, what is the product, what is the invoice date, what is the price at which you're actually selling, who is the customer who is actually buying, and which country they are actually from. Okay, this is a fairly large data set. It has about 50,000 rows. Yeah, so it has about like 5 lakh rows. It's open. I'll also share this data set. So what we are going to do today is we'll use this data set as actually a reference, and we'll go through these 5 different levels. Okay. So level zero is simply, how do you use things like ChatGPT to simply analyze? This is what a lot of people are actually doing today. What you do is open any of these assistant tools. Okay, so open ChatGPT. I have this same file. I have it in CSV format. I can just upload it over there, and I can ask for an analysis. Let me ask. So I'll use the same query. So I'll use something around. Give me the date wise sales. It's a large file. Just give it a minute. Okay, this also, let it up. What you do is you simply upload these files. Okay, looks like it's failing.
Bala, you are not click send.
Yeah, no, I'm waiting for.
Is it me or Bala disconnected?
Sorry.
You're breaking up. I don't know if it's me or everyone is feeling that.
I think it's happening because the upload is happening. Upload is done, so it should be better now. Am I audible now?
Yep.
Yeah, you're audible. Your presentation screen sharing is lost.
Was it? Okay, sorry. Just do it again. All right. Can you see it? All right, perfect. My laptop is dying and my internet is dying. Let's hope we go through this properly. Okay, so now if you see, uploaded the file. I asked a question. So ChatGPT did this analysis and it gave a total sales across each of those days. It obviously gives you some more insights, etc., and all those things. Right. So now I can ask follow-up questions. Then I can explore how to do this. I can figure out other forms of insights, cut it, pivot it. I can create charts, etc. Right. So this is level 1. I'm sure most of us are actually using this today. Okay. Now I'm going to close this. All right. So level 1 is directly basically uploading your CSV, or if you have MCP tools, for example, in Claude, you have this MCP tools format. You can connect your database and you can do this analysis by yourself directly. Okay. But the biggest problem with this approach is data governance. You're essentially uploading your entire sensitive or non-sensitive to some of these tools, and these will be used for training for sure. Okay, because according to the ChatGPT license or any of these assistant license, they talk about how they use this data for their training purposes. So this is, if you're using this today, I would highly discourage it and figure out alternate ways, the other levels we actually go to kind of like make this better. Okay, and again, for you to kind of like download this data, let's say from a database or your BI tools, and then upload it and do the analysis, and when it changes, you again do something else, etc., potentially becomes a huge problem. Now, let's say you graduate from there, you did this basic analysis and you want to go to the next level. So the next level is where we use existing analytics tools, but they are AI assisted. Okay, so let's see an example of that. I don't know, like most of you may not know this. There is a tool called, how many Jupyter notebooks here? Can I get a thumbs up? All right, I'm assuming about like less than half actually. Okay, so I'll give you a simple introduction. So easiest way to think about is Google has this product called Colab. Okay, so okay, so the open source version of this is also free, but the open source version of this is called Jupyter Notebooks. You can install in your laptop and you can actually do this. These notebooks actually help you analyze data in a step-by-step manner. Okay, so it looks like this. It's very, very straightforward. So you have these windows where I can simply write text. So say this is a notebook. To demo analytics. Right. So I can do this. So the first step will actually, now I can go to the second step. Right. So the second step could be, let me take the same example. For example, I can upload the files over here. So I will upload the same file. And I can write Python code in this. Okay, so this is like a lot of you, I saw that half of you have already used it, so please ignore. But whoever has not used it before, it works very, very simple. If it uses Python to do any kind of programming, but it's mainly used for data analytics. Okay, so for example, I can say import pandas SPD, which is basically a library for mainly data analysis, working with large volumes of data. Okay, so it's called a data frame. So I can say data frame is equal to pd.read underscore. So I'm basically using a Python command to read a CSV. And I want to read this CSV, so which is blues.csv. Okay. So now blues.csv is read. I can go back. Swagat.
So let's say someone who doesn't know Python, I don't come from a tech background, and I want to do a data analysis. Is it necessary to write code, or do I write simple English prompts that can help me design like this analysis?
Yeah, you don't need to write code now. So I'll explain. So there are now with AI, you don't necessarily have to know all the coding. Okay. So that's what we actually do. Just bear with me for like 2 minutes. I'll show. All right. So I'm going to show a simple command. Head. Head basically takes like the first few rows and put it. So the first 5 rows look like this, which is the same as what we saw in our PDF, right? White hanging, white metal, etc. Okay. So basically this entire thing is available in DF. Now I can work with DF, do all of these things. Now coming to Swagat's question, right? So now let's say I'm a noob. I don't know, at least at a coding level, I don't know coding. Like even I don't know how to proceed over here if I want to do an analysis. Okay. So this is where these AI assisted tools actually come in. Okay. So Colab is one. There is one more thing called hex.tech, which does exactly the same thing, but it is a paid tool. But Colab is free in with Google unless you use some advanced GPUs, etc. So I would request you to start with Colab. Okay. Or you can use Jupyter Notebooks. It's called Jupyter Notebooks. Okay. You can Google, you have to install it and you can run it at any point in time. So I'm a majority user of this. You don't use Colab so much, but it has the same functionality. Okay, so now I want to know the same thing. So basically what I want to do is get day wise revenue data set. This is what I'm actually trying to achieve over here. So I don't know what the command is. So easiest way for me with this new Google Colab is there is an assistant over here. Just click it saying that the above data set get day wise revenue. So just press So it uses Gemini internally. It understands a notebook and it tries to create like what should be the next step. Okay, let's give it a minute. So it says calculate the total revenue by each row by multiplying quantity and the price, which is correct. Convert the date because invoice is in a date time format, so convert it into date. Extract date, group by date and sum revenue or display results. Okay, this makes sense. Accept an auto run. I will auto run. So it has multiple, it actually goes through step by step also, but for simplicity's sake, I'm showing you like a multi-step run together. Okay. So now let's see. So it created the code automatically. So you don't necessarily have to know how to use this code. Gemini will automatically do this for you. Okay. But anything that needs to be changed, let's say you don't like some of this, you can go and ask and change it again, or you can directly change the code. So that's the most beautiful part of this particular thing. So let's see. So the total revenue is created as a column. Now we are going to extra convert date time. So it converts it into date. Okay. Now we are extracting date. So next you group it based on the date. It basically is like a table. So this is the final result that we actually want. And the last thing is ideally I want to see it in a chart, right? Okay. So what don't I say? I don't think it is using a chart. Can you show this in a line chart? Ta-da! So we have it ready. Okay, so this is very, very easy. You're basically not sending any data to Gemini. All you're actually doing is you're asking for, based on the data structure, Gemini actually gives you the command, the queries. But you don't have any control over what data it actually reads also. So it might be reading like this entire data set that you actually have. But there's a very, very nice way for you to do any kind of like analysis. Even if you still don't know code. Okay, there are several tools which actually do this today, but this is one which is easy, free, very, very straightforward, and it is very, very reliable. Okay, that is level 2. Okay, so now obviously we are actually doing this, but I don't even want to come and like write all of this myself, like, because I still have to think about like the logic, etc. What if I simply want to do some exploratory analysis, that I simply want to ask questions like this, and I just want the results. I don't want you to write all of this, like want me to go and see the code. I'm not interested in any of this. Like, so this is mostly focused on like, let's say a business user wants to use this. So that is where level 3 comes. Yeah, Richa.
Am I audible?
You are, yeah.
Yeah. So how we can cross verify if the analysis done by a collab is like correct or not?
That is actually a very, very good point, right? So there are a few things that we need to do. It's actually an extremely relevant point. So a few things that we need to do. So one is the data preparation itself has to be really, really good. So in terms of how do you structure a database, governance, all of those things, that's the first step before it actually even comes to you. But once it is actually created, the only way for you to verify is how a human would actually verify. Like let's say an intern is doing this analysis, how do you actually verify? Is probably you will take some of these examples and cross correlate and see if the testing is actually fine. In here also, there are only 2 ways, at least I can think of. One is you check the code yourself, which obviously is not ideal in most of the cases. The more reliable way is, let's say on 12th of 12 2010, we are seeing about like 60,000. So I'm just going to do some sample testing where I'm going to filter. Okay, this is going to be a massive filtering effort, I think. And it is also showing the date. Here. Oh, 2010, 12, 01, select 122. Okay. All right. So now I have to do another column which I multiply all of this and test. Basically, I'm doing a sample testing here, right? So that's effectively the only way for you to do this. Got it. If you are doing, if it's like a repeated work that you're actually doing, then you set up some unit test cases, right? So you run the algorithm with the results against like few other past examples and try to put together a test case if it's a repeat effort. But otherwise, the only way to kind of verify this is to check the code or do sample testing.
Bala, I have a question. So just like Looker or Power BI or even Excel sheets, right?
Yeah.
It's recurring, right? As in when you entering data will reports will automatically change and they are real time change. We cannot do that here, right?
This is not a business BI tool, business intelligence tool. Metadata, Looker, and those things are actually business where you can save these reports, you can apply filters, and they kind of like you can keep refreshing. This is mainly for ad hoc analysis.
Understood. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So all these tools are for ad hoc analysis. You can convert this into code and you can run it, but again, that is not as exactly the same. It's very different. Yes, sir.
So I'll share some experience here. So I work with PwC and we have a ChatGPT enterprise membership. And what we have seen is when data sets are very simple, like the one you showed, it runs properly. But when the actual organization data comes, like let's say HRIS data, like how people are charging their time across optimization, a person might be charging his time to project, BD work, etc. GPT, at least the level 0 you have shown, it starts getting confusing. It starts getting confused after even 1 or 2 prompts. As the number of cell increase, like let's say that 500 rows with 40 parameters each, so like 20,000. The first go is okay. After second, third prompt, it starts making a lot of mistakes. So easier way we have found out is just build an initial pivot, like do a pivot table and get to a streamline that you're able to QC as well and run that data actually.
Yeah.
Do that because at least the level 0 is risky to run and get the data analysis done right now.
Definitely. That's very accurate. Like we'll cover some of those towards the end. That's a very, very valid point. Right. Cool. So now just running to level 3, right? So level 3 is, this is where it will come to, like most of these things should slowly go away unless in really large organizations and or you're working with like some really sensitive data. For most of your day-to-day stuff, you should actually get to data exploration tools. Okay. So one of these tools is called Julius.ai. Very interesting tool. Let me see. Julius also has what you call notebooks, which they have actually recently launched. But one other thing also you can actually do is you can simply upload it to Julius, and we can go ahead and ask the same question. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, this revenue line chart. Okay, so this is one way. Again, like you are sharing this information with Julius, which is obviously not recommended. So we'll see how it actually works. But another way is there's something I created last night. It just took me half an hour to do this, right? Ignore the code. It wasn't too difficult actually to do it, but I'll show you the interface that actually works. Yeah, let's finish Julius. This is very similar to ChatGPT, but the advanced thing is it actually internally uses pandas and Python, right? So that means it's slightly more reliable, and it is trained usually for these particular use cases, etc. Okay. Yeah, similar, right? So it gives you the same chart. Like this is one way. But another way, if you want to be like more control over it, if you want to have more control over data, so very simple thing is I created a chatbot last night. Simple things. It is again connected to the same data source. Ignore the UI. I haven't paid a lot of attention to this. These are some sample commands which I can use. What is the average order per transaction? It actually does a query and it returns and it gives you the response. So I'll paste the same query that we did last time over here. Yeah, this is not working because I'm only using like the first 1,000 rows over here, mainly because my program is actually crashing a little bit. But the idea is that you, in your org, whichever org you're actually working in, you ideally only you can easily create some kind of like an interface, expose it to all the business users. So all they have to do is just chat. And based on this, some of things, these are things which we are implementing in some of the organizations that I'm actually consulting with, where you provide this kind of an interface to the rest of the org. And internally, what it actually does, it is actually very, very simple, is I have the data stored in my database. So it's just normal Postgres database. I use it in, this is the same data that I've actually used. Whatever we saw over here, this is the same data that I'm actually using over here. Now this data is actually connected to this particular program. And there is something called Pandas AI. Okay, so this is a package which actually helps you convert these into charts. It's a very simple half-an-hour work with AI. So you create this kind of interface, you provide different access to different people based on their actual logins and expose it to them. So a lot of their advanced analytics or exploratory analytics work actually becomes much, much easier. Okay, so pretty straightforward. Again, you are making sure that you are not sharing personal information. Now, one other thing, this is again slightly getting a little bit technical on the implementation side. So one other thing is that this also uses AI because it tries to understand what is your query and tries to create this output. In this case, share the actual data to the AI, this entire data, because one is obviously it's a sensitive data information, and second is you will incur a lot of tokens if you send all the data to your AI. So the approach over here is that I essentially take the query that the user has actually given, plus I will take all the metadata. Metadata is all your headers basically. Okay, and you also have the option of providing description for all of these headings in the actual production environment. This is just a demo, so I didn't do any of that, but ideally you should have descriptions on what is the format of this column, what is the purpose of this column, how does it relate to different things, etc. What are the outliers in how the column is actually handled. So you have all of these information. You also send this information to AI and ask AI to create an SQL query or a Pandas query. Okay, so once a query comes, you run the query on the database, and the query will actually do the result, and the result is then passed to some chart generator, which is our Pandas AI, and finally you get a beautiful chart. Okay, so that's essentially how we actually do this whole thing. Okay, so if you're working in an org or if you're interested in something like this, definitely explore this. This is kind of like the long-term way where you can actually do, you can kind of democratize the way people access data within the org.
Bala, one question.
Yes.
So, might be silly, but I just want to ask you. This tool you have created only by writing code, right?
Yeah. I use prompts. I don't use code. I just ask it to create prompts. I'm using prompts.
So you did not write any. You did not use any tool. It's the code which you wrote, and that is what helped you to create this bot.
Correct. Yes.
And a non-techie can also give prompts and build this chatbot, build this bot.
Yes, ideally. I mean, you should have some understanding of technology for you to build these kind of tools. But you don't necessarily have to know how to write code. We actually first few sessions in our Applied AI Club, we have created especially for non-techies to kind of use vibe coding to create these kind of tools. So that's where we covered a lot of these principles. You can even check those.
Got it. Thanks.
All right. Okay, so we come to level 3, right? So level 1 is simply uploading the data to chatbot, not thinking about anything. Second two is level 2 is basically using some of these tools with AI assisted tools to create this. Level 3 is what I actually call is a AI assistant, analytics assistant. Just like how you have public assistants, you can create your own private assistants, which is data analytics focused, and you can use these assistants to perform your data analytics. Okay. Level 4 is getting a little bit more deeper. Okay, so if you, this is mostly for users who are slightly more busier. If you think about your business heads or your founders or like product managers, etc. So who don't want to get open a new tab, ask all these questions, do all these further analysis, etc. So they want to do it much easier. So this is again a sample that I created one. So this is okay. This is very simple, right? So we'll go to something like working on. So I have a Slack agent called analytics agent. Okay, so I'm gonna add this agent to my channel. So let's say analytics agent, and I can give you the same query. Which is this. Let's hope this thing works. Okay, it doesn't look it is. Oh, it is actually. Oh, okay. I have to add this. I think that's it. Add them. Now it should work. So this is what I'm actually calling as like analytics copilots. Okay, so it uses the same principles. The only thing is, instead of you actively working with an assistant, so the whole concept of assistant, this parallel is applicable to other industries and other work you do with AI also. The parallel is basically that what you do over here, these are basically your assistants where you work with the assistants. Assistant gives you feedback, you give feedback, and you kind of like perform the work together. The co-pilots are basically like remote employees where you can offload work. Okay, so the way you are offloading work over here is that you create any kind of like a query. So let me try different one. This is, we don't have enough data for us to work with this better. So give me the of orders country wise, right? So the way it actually works is you create this query, and it doesn't matter how long the query actually takes. Then you can go do some other work. And the assistant the co-pilot will actually do the work on your behalf in an asynchronous manner and come back to you with the results. Okay, so you can independently offload some of this work. These are very simple queries, but when you have longer queries, it actually takes a much longer time. You don't have to do any of this. Essentially, you can do it from Slack, you can do it from WhatsApp, you can do it from any of these things. Okay, so that's how the whole the Copilot piece actually works.
Well, one question relevant to this: how did we create the Slack agent, and how do we integrate them from nothing?
So very simple. So basically, it uses the same underlying same code that we used for this assistant, the parallel assistant that we actually used. Slack has this interesting thing called Slack apps. Okay, it is fairly well documented, but it doesn't work. It takes a lot of iterations for it to actually work. So what I've created is I've created an analytics agent, and I have given some permissions for this analytics agent. I'll delete this agent, so it doesn't matter. So for it to write, send messages, and also upload files. Okay. So once I create this agent, I have to connect that agent to Slack. and I also have to connect that agent to the program that does all of this. It's just a fairly easy job, but it opens up a lot of opportunities. The whole thing is your AI assistant, or in this case, assistant becomes invisible. That's when it actually becomes a copilot, right? So you can offload work and come back to it, and it will give you a response whenever it is actually done. Okay, cool. Rahul.
Bala, we can do this in Julius as well, right? Asynchronous nature of work.
I have not used Julius to that extent actually. You know that they said they have notebooks and few other things like this, but I've not used it to that extent. Maybe you can.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, so a lot of tools are actually doing this. If there are like Slack bots which are actually available to do this, but it's not like too difficult for you to do it yourself. Okay. See, I'm a big proponent of like kind of like keeping your internal data internal rather than using a lot of paid softwares. But if you are interested in those things, this becomes much easier. All right. So,
Bala, just a question. So even if we build our own stuff, right? Invariably, we are calling these Gen AI models. So are there any models, or is there any enterprise version where they wouldn't train with our data?
And that's actually a very, very good question, Guru. So we'll cover that in a second, but give an update. Whenever you transfer data via APIs or you use the AI by APIs, the policy says that, which is good, which is in the proper statement number one. And number two is that for any of this analysis, you don't send the data to them. You only send the metadata. That means the column names, the table names, the purpose of it, etc. Right? So in that case also, your privacy gets preferred. Your actual company data doesn't go out.
I missed your first point. There was a blip in the internet. First.
Oh, sorry. The first point is basically that if you use APIs to access these engines, they don't train on your data, is what they say.
Okay.
Yeah. The second one is more important, that you don't even send the data, you simply send the metadata. Okay, I think my share is stopped. Just really sure.
Might be a dumb question. So I was analyzing our support tickets recently. Okay, so I had the subject and the description, and I was able to categorize it whether it's an issue or request, and then the subcategory of where all of the tickets are basically coming in. I used Gemini because again I didn't want to go for any. I didn't pay for any of the APIs. So in this case, when you say metadata, would they just know that, okay, I'm just passing subject and description, or the data also would have gone?
See, if you are asking the AI to say that, tell me whether this is, let's say, a support request, let's say a bug or whatever.
Okay, maybe you want to switch off your video. Maybe that might be. You might have not have it.
Let me switch off my video. Is it better?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Can you?
You can hear it now, yeah.
So can you repeat your question?
No, so when I passed the Excel, when I use the Excel and I wrote the Python code to basically categorize, the tickets.
Yeah.
Are you saying, so I'm calling Gemini API, right? So are you saying it would not know what data, what was the actual description, what was the actual subject, or it will just take metadata? I didn't understand that part.
No, anything you send to the Gemini, it will know what data. It will have access to the data, right? So
Correct.
the fact that you don't want to when I said like you want to send data and not the actual data, that is as per our implementation. So we have to implement in such a manner that we only send the metadata, not the other ones.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's in the implementation piece.
So Bala, sending the data of enterprise data and any information. If I understand correctly, these models are not meant to learn from your data. Maybe they may be retaining the data for learning or training purpose later. So any instance of what you share, whether you have a NDA signed or something, but as far as I understand, going beyond the hood, they don't learn, right?
Yeah, there are two things. So one is if you have an enterprise contract, normally you have a clause that will not use your data for training, right? But
Yes.
yeah, so that is one. The second one is generally, if let's say they have, actually they're going to learn from the data.
We lost you. I couldn't hear
Yeah,
second
sorry.
part.
So yeah, if they have access to train on the data, then it means that they're going to learn from that data, right?
Okay. I thought they can
Yeah.
retain the data to train it or learn it for later purpose. So
Yeah, not instantly,
Yeah.
instantly, but they'll use it for training at a later point in time.
Yeah. Okay.
I think
Yeah.
ChatGPT Plus and others now allow you to have a setting which says don't learn from my data. So in that case, they will not use that data. At least that is a stated promise.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just generally, I don't. Oh, sorry. So generally, I don't. At least for enterprise cases, for personal cases, it is still okay for me. But generally, for enterprises, I wouldn't trust these tools because I don't know what clauses are going to come in. Even some of these new news publications, and if you see Reddit and Twitter and a few other things, they've started learning from the data. So that's where my qualms actually come in. These regulations keep changing over a period of time.
Correct.
But yeah, like this is probably slightly digressing. Okay, coming to the last bit. So unfortunately, I didn't have time to create a demo for this, but this is where the current iterations of analytics agents are actually coming in. And if you are exploring for any tool, either third-party tool or you're thinking of building internally, this is how you should actually think about it. Now, autonomous agents. So autonomous agents are basically the ones. You should the analogy for this is imagine that you have a very strong analytics person who is sitting in your organization, whose pure responsibility is to understand all the patterns, understand the recent insights, and keep checking what are the relevant insights and how things are actually changing, and keep churning out information that will help you run your business better. Okay. So in the case of Copilot, what is the difference between a Copilot and an autonomous agent? So Copilot is providing an instruction. Copilot, you are providing an instruction for the agent to give you a response. So is that a question? Okay. So for Copilot, you are providing an instruction for the Copilot to kind of do the analysis and come back. Okay. But in the case of autonomous background agents, you don't have to give any instruction. So there are a few things that they actually have. One is the historical queries, whatever questions you've actually asked. It maintains the context of all of those. That means it knows what are the things that you're actually interested in. The second is it also builds a knowledge base of historical insights, right? So over a period of, for example, let's say you're running an e-commerce business. What is a typical trend of your, what do you call revenue actually looks like? Which area is performing better? Which area is performing worse? What is the ad returns that you can actually expect? So how are each of these channels are performing? It knows, it remembers a lot of these histories and patterns. Okay, it also knows what you're actually doing, what you're actually interested in. So using all of this, it keeps creating interesting independent analysis. And the important factor that comes into picture using these memories is what patterns or what insights are not relevant to me and what insights are actually relevant to me, and accordingly send me these insights autonomously. Okay, it again uses the same principles, just like how ChatGPT became like order of magnitude better with memories and historical information. These autonomous agents will also become like super useful in this particular manner. Again, from a technology point of view, it is not so much of a jump from Copilot to background agents, but these are going to change the way that we do analysis or analytics in our orgs. Okay, so that's the big difference, and that's where we are actually coming to. Any questions on this before I touch upon the governance piece?
How do we think about the data sources here, like using PDFs, for instance, or Word documents instead of CSV files? Will the agents be able to do the heavy lifting involved in transforming the data into organized data like CSV there?
Sorry, I just lost you. Can you repeat the question?
Basically, I'm looking at what happens. So we are starting at using the data source as a CSV here. Instead, will the agents be able to reliably use PDFs or PowerPoints as a source of data? And then we run queries on top of it.
Yeah. See,
Yes.
so it's basically any AI agent in this case, right? So it just depends on how good the agent actually is in doing this analysis. Now, there are a few factors. One, it depends on which model you actually use. Most of these public SOTA models, they are actually good for any of these use cases, either it is PDF or PPTs or Excels or any of these things. Okay. The way Excel actually works is that they typically write code using their code interpreter to derive results, so it's slightly more accurate. In case of PDFs, it depends on vision or OCR extraction principles to kind of do this process, which would be slightly weaker. But at the state that we are seeing in the market today, I think even the PDF ones or OCR ones are much better. They're still like really good, so you don't have to worry too much about it. The second one is there are few fine-tuned models that are actually coming, which are purely focused on analytics, right? For example, Claude launched one fine-tuned model, very specific for finance departments recently, which is for all your Excel analysis and other things, which is fine. And obviously, in really complex cases, it becomes much better. And for data analysis, we expect the same. We need to come across a model which is actually good, but I'm looking into that space. I'm sure there are a few already. But when you are exploring for this particular use case, I would say don't look at the SOTA models, but look at something like a fine-tuned model for analytics. And if it can, if it's self-hosted, like even better. Your cost will be, accuracy will be high. You can do so much better.
All right. Okay. That's very helpful, Bala. I'll look at fine-tuned models.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So,
Bala, a follow-up question. Can I ask a small question here?
Sure, go on.
So Tableau is the big, benchmark here, but there's so many tools inside Tableau that help us massage the data and create those nice-looking dashboards, right? Yeah. I mean, any of the tools like Julius and all, they're pretty basic, when it comes into making that really nice-looking dashboard. I feel like it's a lot of work doing it through Julius or any of the. I don't know how much these things manage, even the agents manage. Any tools around that area? Any thoughts about which AI stack can help us make a Tableau-like dashboard?
I'm not aware of any current ones, but I think it's just a matter of time. So basically, just a layer, right? For example, if I want to spend some time, I'm working on this problem. There are a lot of tools like Dash by Plotly. There are a few analytics, UI engines which are actually launched recently on a web development side. Okay. Now, all I have to do is just plug it into like the web piece and into the AI to see what is the best way of displaying, given all these formats of charts and other things that you actually have, and create an interactive dashboard. That is actually easier and much more robust effort, right? So, a bit of time, in my opinion. I'm sure somebody is working on it.
Okay, that's an interesting take. Basically, why go through so much when the AI can do the thinking? So the ready-made answer that we get is probably as good as what the Tableau can do.
Yeah, even better for me, in my opinion.
Okay, yeah, probably saved me a bunch of time again, Bala. Thank you.
Yes, yeah, please go on.
So Bala, I got an idea that if we have structured data and data prep done well, etc., and these tools are very efficient and have different kind of maturity, but I'm looking for something that can do a good job of analytics on image recognition or OCR based inputs as well, right? So do you have kind of tools in mind which can help there?
Yes, a lot of tools are actually, so a lot of SaaS solutions are actually launched for image recognition. So there are like multiple levels if you think about image recognition. So one is the normal OCR tools, which Google has one, Amazon has one, like everybody has one, which is the traditional ones, which are about 93%, 94% accurate for typed documents, and for handwritten it is probably around like 80% or whatever. But with the new AI models, even if you look at simply Gemini, Gemini Flash 2.5 Flash, it is about 98% accurate in case of reading documents and giving a structured information. Right? You don't need OCR; it just uses vision to kind of like process it. So those are much better. There are also a couple of there are a bunch of actually a lot of SaaS tools which actually do this well. Right? So you can explore some of those. Even we have one. We created one some time back. I think it's still live. So that's about like 99.6% accurate for all the typed documents. For handwritten, it is north of 97.5. So it is very, very accurate. Right? So that's also something inaccurate. It is under Applied AI Club only. We call it extractor. It should be under dashboard.appliedai.club. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, so that's something that's actually still active. So if you're interested, just ping me offline. I can help you hook it up.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay. All right. Okay. So just one last point, which I couldn't cover in the meeting, right? So one of the principles in terms of like data preparation is this is where some new companies should actually come in, at least for mid-market and SMB kind of enterprise. The enterprises, there are like few tools that are already available. Now, what is that we want to solve? So what we want to solve for is when you provide inputs to the LLM to create these reports and charts, or we provide the right SQL, we need to provide the right context. Somebody called it out in the beginning that when you have large amount of data, the LLMs actually go through some form of hallucination, which will come through at some point in time. So all the effort actually goes into is figuring out what is the right table I should actually look at. What is the right columns that the LLM should actually know, and the entire structure, what is the structure of each of those columns, etc. So once the LLM has each of these contexts very, very specifically for that query, it can perform much, much better. Okay, so that is where another layer of analysis actually comes in, which is when a query comes in, how do you identify what tables are actually relevant and what columns are relevant, what are the descriptions of each of these tasks, and what are the sample data for each of these tasks actually is going to look like for each and every query. So you create that structure. Probably it also needs an LLM layer, and use that layer to feed the next LLM, which will create the SQL. Right. So that is a structure to follow to solve this particular problem. Yeah. Go on, Richard.
Yeah, as you mentioned that if we have a like large data, so you mean to say we have to create one CSV file, taking multiple like using multiple data, we have to create one CSV file to give the inputs. Is it the thing?
No. So what I was saying is before you send that. So here what we are talking about is when we send the LLM about what all columns are there and how do you filters, right? Okay, let me explain it better. Let's say you have like some 100 tables. Okay, 100 tables for an e-commerce company, and let's say I'm simply asking about, hey, how many orders did we actually get from like UK yesterday? Okay, then I'm interested in the countries table. I'm interested in the orders table, and I'm probably interested in, if you have separate data for every year or something, I'm interested in current year's data table, right? So what I will do is I'll take the definitions of each of these tables, what are the columns which are there in each of these tables, and what are the descriptions of each of these columns, so that metadata gets formed. Okay, so I take the query, I give the metadata, I send it to the LLM, and I ask the LLM, so this is the structure of my table. You give me the SQL query or the Pandas query or the Python query, with which I can extract this data in an efficient manner. So here I'm not sending the actual data, I'm simply giving the structure of my tables. So they give it and the LLM sends a response. In case of CSV, coming to your question on CSV, so CSV, the thing is you typically will do there is only so much limit that the ChatGPTs and other assistants will actually take. So you probably have to put everything in a single CSV for ad hoc analysis. Did I answer the question?
Actually, I have a I want to say in a different context that supposedly I have a seller who sells in UK, America, and multiple products. And I want to do an analysis that for a particular product, in what country that seller is doing, what kind of a revenue and all that thing. So I have multiple files which has multiple sellers, multiple products. So do I need to create a one file or how it is?
Yeah, in that case, you'll have to probably create a file which with only that seller's information. Right.
Okay,
So
that filtering I have to do it manually.
Either you do it manually or use something like Google Colab. I showed you in the beginning. So what you can do is, so in exactly your case, right? So I'll show you how to do it. First step is upload all your files here. So let's say you have like 10 different locations and 10 different files. Upload all your files over here. Then you can go to the, okay, what happened? So then you can go here and you can simply read all the 5 files. Then in Gemini, simply say, hey, I have given all these 5 files here. This is exactly how each of them actually look. Can you help me create a query which do this analysis? So it will help you do all of those things. Right?
Okay,
so
thank you.
that's
Yeah.
much easier, much more efficient manner.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sanyam, yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Bala. Thanks for the session. We are also trying to solve a similar problem for one of our clients in the life sciences space. And the issue over there is, I think, quite similar to what Richa was pointing out, that it's never usually a one data set problem. There is a network of data sets that we have to deal with.
Yeah.
And in that situation, I think there are 2 ways to go about it. I just wanted to get a perspective if you have seen either of these 2 working. So one is like, as you were saying, right, we can work a lot harder on the metadata preparation, which is like for each table, we put out the descriptions, we tell AI, right, what are the relationships across these different tables and so on.
Yeah.
And that requires a lot of like prompt definitions, metadata descriptions, and so on.
Yeah.
So is there a framework that can help AI uncover these relationships preemptively before it starts writing the query? For instance, are there knowledge graph frameworks that we can use? And this is just out of the back, right? But I just want to understand if there is a way for AI to also interpret those relationships first and then write the query. So it is sort of a thinking step by step instead of throwing all the data at once.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the kind of what I was also saying. So let me give you slightly different.
And one thing that I've seen working, and this is just for the group, like we were also trying to build a SQL writing agent of sorts, and our stakeholders were both on the business and the data management side. What actually worked out well for our demo was if we had couple of examples already in place, right? If you write 10 good SQL queries and then show those SQL queries to the solution, it works wonderfully well. So like all of those LLM hallucination issues get mitigated to a very large extent if you create good 4 or 5 query examples and feed those to the model also at the time of prompting. So I think
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, that's a very, very good point. Yeah. So just coming to this, so we have a database like this, which is like a fairly large database with a lot of columns, etc. Right? So, and this is nothing compared to what you'll see in a typical enterprise. Okay. Now, the way you can actually do this, have the context of this entire database, probably something like a JSON, which is available for the LLM to actually read. Okay, so again, if it is too big, you can use something like a RAG, or if it is too small, you can directly send it in each of those queries. Okay, so you have a JSON, so JSON can have like the IDs and the descriptions and other things, and you can send it as an input. So that way the LLM will know how do I actually traverse to each of these nodes, etc. Okay, or you create a separate logic, you separate LLM module, which will access these tables by itself and tries to traverse and parse and figure this out itself. Okay, But I prefer the former one because you put in a little bit of effort. I know it'll take like a month for it to create that thing. When you create that effort well, it reduces tokens, reduces the time, and reduces mistakes downstream. So that would be my recommended approach. But if you want to create another model which can automatically traverse and find out all of this, even that is not a bad idea. That will still work. You can create some kind of like a memory, some kind of auto updating kind of like a sequence. You can do some things around it to make that process also easier.
Yeah. And over time, right, if this solution is actually live in production, we can use all the query log data, right? Basically, all the question answers, all the feedback that we are getting from humans, right? Which was the right data analysis. All of that can also feed into the training itself, right?
Absolutely. That's actually a fantastic point. Thanks for bringing it up. So yeah, like for example, if I'm getting a response, right? So I can even put a simple things like I can put a thumbs up saying whether the response is helpful or not. If you're using something like a chatbot, and that helps the AI also learn whether what kind of responses are useful and not useful. And if with a large enough enterprise, this actually goes a long way.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, folks. Are there any other questions?
Nothing. I think we got everything answered during the session.
Awesome.
There was one question on how did you build that other tool. They wanted to know how to build it. Maybe we can send it to an email, or you can just briefly explain how you do it.
Yeah, I can upload the code. It is not nothing fancy. So I have the repository public only. I can share that. We can share that code in the what do you call email.
Email. Okay, correct. Sure.
Something we can do. All right. If there is nothing else, then we can actually close. Yeah, please register on Apply AI Club if you're interested in joining. And second is, if you like what we are actually doing, please give a shout out on social media. That'll help us grow. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.